or good morning, or good afternoon. A couple of disclaimers before we start this evening's program, in that this conversation, this reminder, this episode will talk about various topics related to mental health, addiction, and a reminder about multiple sclerosis. These may be sensitive to some of our viewers. Viewer discretion, as always, is advised. We remind you to please consult your doctor, your mental health professional, your outreach group, your sponsor, or specialist before adopting any change to your dietary, physical, and or mental health regime. If you're looking for options to go down with respect to mental health, contact SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, at 1-800-662-HELP. That's 1-800-662-4357. The service is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and is a confidential free information service for individuals and family members facing such stressors. Importantly, if you're feeling suicidal crisis or emotional distress and need to be put in touch with a crisis center, call the Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK. That's 1-800-273-8255, or go to suicidepreventionlifeline.org. You can also text the word HOME to 741-741. Those resources are also available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And then we can't have a disclaimer unless I talk about something that has become a reality for me over the last 10 months, and that of multiple sclerosis. The National MS Society is a collective of passionate individuals who want to do something about MS now, to move together towards a world free of multiple sclerosis. Multiple sclerosis is comprised of unpredictable and often disabling flare-ups of the central nervous system. Such flare-ups disrupt the flow of information within the brain and between the brain and the body. The National MS Society is the largest private funder of MS researchers in the world, and they're investing more than $1 billion to date. MS stops people from moving, but the National MS Society exists to make sure that MS doesn't. To contact the National MS Society, please call 1-800-344-4867. Once again, 1-800-344-4867, or go to their website at nationalmssociety.org. Also of note, we are still raising money for the National MS Society through A Venture to a Cure's fundraising page at rebrand.ly/A Venture to a Cure. Once again, rebrand.ly/A Venture to a Cure. This effort will last through the end of the month. Thank you to all of you who have donated money to this amazing organization. It touches me and over the 1 million people in this country that have multiple sclerosis in so many ways, and I appreciate all of you. And on that, let's begin. Over the last couple of weeks, we were talking about the importance of self-care. We have to take care of ourselves in order for us to take care of the people, places, and things around us. Tonight, we're going to talk about a form of self-care that we don't usually talk about, and that of cuddling. Tonight's guest is a cuddle therapist by the name of Xandria. She'll share the journey that led her to this profession, and we'll also talk about the benefits of cuddling and the chemical it releases, and that of oxytocin. This is The Venture Forward. Good evening, or good morning, or good afternoon, wherever you may be, and welcome to the Venture Forward. I am John Venturini, a recovering addict of overeating, obesity, alcoholism, and compulsive gambling, and it is an honor and pleasure to see all of you tonight on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. Tonight's topic is a very different topic. We talked about some of the things we can do to take care of ourselves as far as getting ourselves to a healthier place. We've talked about a lot of the dangers that I've dealt with by way of obesity, by way of alcoholism, by way of compulsive gambling. Also, the after effects of them as far as bankruptcy, as far as other things that are related, and peripheral things such as co-addiction, codependency. Tonight, we're going to talk about something that is very important by way of self-care, in that of touch. Physical touch. Tonight we're talking to a cuddle therapist, and it is an exciting and I've been waiting to have this conversation for a long time because she is a treasure trove of knowledge, and this will be a really great conversation for sure. But before we begin the conversation, let's say hello to all of you on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. And we start off with Jamie. Hey Jamie, how are you over on YouTube? Hope you're having a great evening. We got Marilyn over on YouTube. I hope you're having a good evening as well. We got Sarah over on Facebook. So usually on YouTube, over on Facebook. Got it. Yeah, Jamie, you were awesome last week on VF Talks, and again, great job with that. Sarah brings up a good point. She says, uh-oh, I'm in trouble. I forgot what cuddling is. We'll talk about that in mere seconds, so we'll get there. And Michelle says, hi. Hi to you. I have to get a cup of it. My mouth was becoming a little dry there, so there you go. And I, too, hope everyone is well. So that said, let's bring on our guest. Xandria, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Not bad. Not bad at all. It's as I said in the intro, I've been looking forward to this conversation for a long time. You are a very knowledgeable person with respect to not only cuddle therapy, but you know a lot about just the sort of ideas of psychology and all that. So it's an honor and pleasure to have you on the show tonight.
Thank you.
I guess, they say you should start off with the beginning, and let's start off with the beginning. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I guess about me, I don't know how far I should go back. I grew up in the Philly area, for those of you from the East Coast. And I guess I kind of didn't know what I wanted to do for a while, career-wise. Had no idea I would be a professional cuddler. I kind of had a chaotic childhood. Teen parents. My father I lost to addiction, so I know the struggle your community goes through for sure. A lot of back and forth and chaos, and not a lot of like consistent, nurturing, stable relationships in my life. From an early age, I was very gravitated towards romantic relationships. I always had to have a boyfriend. And now that I'm, more knowledgeable about psychology and the importance of touch, I'm thinking maybe that was my coping mechanism, because I always had to cuddle all the time. I was like that annoying, clingy, needy girlfriend. Like I just was a cuddle addict. I mean, I still am, but I realize now that maybe that was part of it, was that like insecurity in my life, cuddling like filled that hole or that void for me. So yeah, I grow up, I go off to college, I switched majors, and I finally settled on psychology because I wanted to help kids with dysfunctional families like mine. I end up taking a gap year after my bachelor's degree because life happened and I needed a break from school. And I, tried sales, recruiting. None of it worked out well. To be honest, I was going broke. I really needed an extra job, something else to do other than my day job. So I remembered, cuddling. Because I read about it a few years back when I was still in school. My boyfriend at that time was like, no way am I letting you do that. That's so weird. But I remembered it. I'm like, well, if I ever really need money, I could always cuddle because I love to cuddle anyway, right? Mm-hmm. So I signed up on this website called Cuddle Comfort. And the day after I signed up, I got fired from my crappy day job. And that weekend, I made enough money to cover my rent. My inbox blew up, it took off, and there really weren't many other good opportunities like that for a recent graduate with a psychology degree. So it's now been 2 years. I've, gotten better, I'd like to think. I have an office. I'm now Cuddleist trained. I'm on Cuddleist. So yeah, that's kind of my backstory, how I got to where I'm at today. I think I was very lucky that I just happened to fall into my niche. It is what I love to do, but it took a lot of stumbling to get there.
Yeah, I think, it's a very good lesson for a lot of us. Like, we all enjoy a jack of many different trades. We all have our hands in many different things, hobbies, what have you. And when you find the one thing you truly appreciate, you gravitate to. Now, it's not necessarily true that we're going to go ahead and make a living out of it. But when you can do that, well, then you've really hit pay dirt in the sense that now not only are you doing the thing that you appreciate, the thing that that drives you, but you're making money doing it.
Definitely. Yeah, I feel very blessed. I always say I love the part where I actually get to see my clients and have sessions. That's not even work to me. That's, something I look forward to. I get, I think, as much benefit as my clients do out of it. The hard part is just the running of the business and getting things booked and all that. There is still some work, but I think overall I'm very fortunate to have found this career.
The business side of things is usually a very tough sort of thing to deal with, the divide between the business versus the actual work itself. And very rarely do I find someone who enjoys both sides of the house, so to speak. But it's an important side of the house. Obviously, you want to make sure that the business runs correctly, and you want to make sure that finances, et cetera, taxes, are taken care of. So I get that for sure. Yeah. A couple folks said hi. So we have hi, Xandria from Mommy Guide Inc. We also have Elo, Dr. Elo, saying hi, John and Xandria. Also, Jamie says, sorry for your loss, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
So I guess you kind of alluded to it, but, when did you realize that the service of cuddling was a very beneficial service, not only for the client, but also for the cuddlist?
Yeah, so for me, I definitely saw positive changes in my life when I started cuddling. I was in a pretty low point at that time, and I had just gotten out of an abusive relationship several months before. I was, not knowing where I was going in my career. I was dating and those dates weren't panning out. And I think cuddling, it helped with my self-esteem and self-worth. It helped me learn to talk to people and relate better on dates and in my personal life, where before I was an awkward mess. So it reduces my anxiety. I can come into a session really anxious, and then, within a few minutes of cuddling, I'm super calm, because I can never really know what a client is thinking and feeling. I know what they tell me, and I believe it is helping them, but I know within me, I've felt and seen those changes in my life. So I believe, it helps with physical health, mental health, stress, anxiety, self-esteem, socializing, communication, boundaries, consent. I mean, the list goes on with all the benefits,
We mentioned during the open oxytocin, and we forget how important oxytocin actually is. And let me actually go over to. Of course I have a deck. Why wouldn't I? Even with a guest, I have a deck, right? Let me start off with this as I get rid of that sort of pesky stuff up there. Oxytocin. Like, when did you realize that oxytocin was a very important element of cuddling, and moreover the sort of impact that oxytocin presents itself rather in cuddling.
Yeah, so I mean, oxytocin does all kinds of amazing things, like I kind of mentioned before. And, I think I felt that within myself, like that reduction of stress and anxiety just within a few minutes. So it's like, if you think you've had a long, hard day, you want to take a drink after work to calm down, lower those nerves, well, you could cuddle somebody instead and it would do the same thing. So it definitely, you feel the chemical effects, and there's plenty of studies to back that up as well.
And to that point, we talk about how there is, I wouldn't say hubbub about cuddling within the last few years, beyond what the last year and a half has been, 2 years with, the Backstreet Boys reunion tour. And there's the first time I mentioned it. But like, there's been a lot of hubbub as far as basically the importance of cuddling and how physical touch is very necessary, requisite for human existence, for living. Like, so, there was a study from Dr. Will Cole, and it was one of the sites he referred to me, who is a holistic medicine doctor, talked about the improving of sleep and curbing cravings and halting weight gain and easing chronic pain. As far as do you find, and do you have, clients that come to you that say that, ever since I started cuddling, my anxiety has been reduced? Have they talked exactly to that list that's to the right of us?
Yes. Yeah, actually, I had one client who told me he felt his blood pressure come down. They've said they've slept better, anxiety reduced, had a happier feeling about them for about a week after the session. So a lot have come to me and said how great it feels after they cuddle. And, for the clients who aren't able to get touch in their lives, some will come to see me weekly or bi-weekly as almost like a maintenance, like instead of taking antidepressants or something, this is how they feel good and function and feel okay, between sessions.
A couple of questions that popped up before we went down this road, and I'm gonna actually bring up Sarah's comment again because I think it's a very fair one, and I think she might have been joking, but to get your perspective on it. Wow, it's been a long day. It would be great. So, what in your eyes, what exactly is cuddling? What for you? What are the dynamics of cuddling?
I don't know. So are we talking about like the act of cuddling, or are we talking about like a cuddle session in a professional cuddling scenario? Because I think those are two different things.
Yeah, let's address it from therapy session, from cuddle therapy sessions. Yeah.
So I would say like the thing with a cuddle session is we have certain boundaries. It's platonic, clothing stays on, communication, all that stuff is really important. So there's kind of like, if you think about like dogs playing in the yard, you've got like the fence of what's allowed, and you stay within that fence, and then you're free to play and explore and try different things. So I have had clients who were not ready or comfortable with any kind of touch, and they just wanted to share space and communicate. The typical session will involve like typical cuddling, spooning or head to chest facing each other. I don't want to get into all the position names because I know you guys aren't in the cuddling world, but yeah, a lot of it's body to body cuddling. But usually we will talk for a few minutes. I always do a consultation with new clients just to make sure that this is what they're looking for and what they really need before we agree to meet. And then when we get there, I'll chat with them for a few minutes, let them settle in, and then we'll begin to cuddle. Some people want to cuddle in silence. Some people want to talk while we cuddle. Some people want to watch a movie or a TV show. I make my office super relaxing. It's like a forest theme with galaxy projectors and color changing lights. So I try really hard to make it a super serene and relaxing environment. I also come to clients, but Yeah, every session's kind of tailored to that client and what their needs are, and I kind of let them lead the way.
Jamie has a question. How much does it typically cost, and does insurance cover this type of service?
Yeah, so cost really can range. For me personally, I kind of base it on the length of the session. So the more hours you come book, the less you're paying for each individual hour. So I would say expect for, and this is across the board, to pay anywhere from like $80 an hour to like several $100s if you're going to be staying for a few hours. Insurance, unfortunately, does not cover it, but I know other professionals in my industry who are fighting for that and, you know, trying to get that recognition. But at this time, it is an out of pocket expense.
To that end, what as far as perspective and clientele that you see in cuddling, what is the general sort of person on average that comes to you from a demographic perspective, gender, sexuality, age, that sort of thing?
So I'd say like the one thing that I have a commonality of is demographic wise is they usually are cisgendered, um, heterosexual men, but I do sometimes get somebody who's like non-binary or transgender. If I were a male professional cuddler, I might see a more diverse population of women and gay men, but because I'm a female and because it's still a newer industry, it is mainly male clients, although I do know there are female clients who've seen other professionals. The only real common thread other than that is they all lack meaningful touch in their lives, but I get different relationship situations, different ethnicities, nationalities, careers. I've had anything from early 20s all the way up to like late 70s. So it's really all over the place in terms of those other demographics.
Jamie, by the way, says thank you. Keep on advocating for your profession.
Thank you, Jamie.
Um, you kind of alluded us to this just a second ago, but as far as the general MO of situations that clients and prospective clients experience that make them look for, you know, basically cuddle therapy, what top three, I would say, what sort of situations prevail themselves that make them go
Um,
down that road?
so I would say one of the big ones is like, you know, either a really not healthy or happy marriage where they're not having much of any intimacy. It happens very often when you see couples who've been together a long time. You know, they put their careers, their children, whatever, in at first, and they forget to make time for each other. And it just gets to the point where they can no longer go to their partner and say, "Hey, I want to cuddle." They don't want to cheat or anything, but they need that touch. So that's where I would come in. So that's one.
Mm-hmm.
There are people who are between relationships and they want cuddling and they don't necessarily want to like have strings attached or anything complicated or rush into something prematurely. So I can kind of alleviate that loneliness and touch deprivation while they're looking for that right person. And I would say the other person is like somebody who's never had a relationship or has never or hasn't had one in a very long time.
Mm-hmm. I I could honestly see that. I really can, and you know, well, we've talked about this for a long time as far as the growing statistic of divorce in this country, even with the events of the last 18 to 24 months. It's still very much a thing, but I think it also goes to the fact that people are still looking for physical touch and definitely need physical touch. There's so many beneficial things to that. And I could totally see what you're saying with that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, it's hard, I guess, in modern times to keep those happy relationships going. Although I always encourage like counseling, you know, couples counseling and different resources to help strengthen those relationships. You know, it's kind of like in Japan now, there's practice boyfriends and girlfriends because the workaholic culture is just taken over. I think, we're having to, I don't know, like sub out different forms of intimacy in our lives because people just aren't making enough time for their personal lives all the time, or it's not functioning.
I've heard the term used before in mental health in the sense of surrogacy partnership.
Mm-hmm.
And you're saying it's a big thing in Japan. I wonder if it's the sort of thing that needs to make some sort of growth here in the
Yeah.
Western Hemisphere per se.
Well, I know like a surrogate partner is like more, I guess, a form of sex therapy where like what I'm talking about is more in Japan. Like they'll go on like a practice date, nothing physical is really happening, but they're so awkward because they're always like working. They don't know how to socialize or date, so they'll have to like pay someone to teach them how to date. So it's a little bit different than surrogate partner, but another good example of like having to pay somebody to like have intimacy and meaningful relationships in your life.
So basically, like a relationship doctor.
Yes,
Okay.
basically.
Which I was going to think about the most careful way of asking this question, but I figured I'd be remiss not to ask this question in this conversation. But from what do you find, what is the difference between cuddling and sex work?
Yeah, so sex work, I think a lot of people assume sex work means like, I don't want to, it's a derogatory term, but I don't know what other word to use, like a prostitute or somebody that has physical like intercourse with their clients, when in reality sex work is a big umbrella profession that can be anything from like a phone sex operator, OnlyFans, escort. Like there's all kinds of sex work, but the one common thread with a sex worker is their goal is arousal, right? They're trying to get them aroused, get their client off. That is not the goal in cuddle therapy. So my goal with my clients is to help them feel nurtured and important, help build their confidence. In a lot of ways, I have similar goals to a talk therapist, but I help my clients feel better through touch rather than a therapeutic discussion. So I actually think that, if I didn't have the boundaries I had around the sessions being platonic, I would actually be doing a disservice to my clients because it wouldn't have that nurturing, therapeutic, safe feeling that my sessions currently have.
Yeah, it's fostering a very strong heart-mind connection.
Yes.
Let's see. Spirit for the soul, spirit for, I always try saying this. STMB says, hello, JV, interesting topic. I, my apologies. I used to know the name of your show, and I apologize, but STMB says, hello, JV, interesting topic. It is very much an interesting topic, and I would say that a lot of the conversations that we've had over, the last couple of years, I mean, you've definitely have a very good perspective on this. I guess that leads me to my next question in the sense that you talk about your education in psychology. Is there anything that was geared from your psychology education to what you do now for a living?
I mean, I think I have a general knowledge of, mental health, and I took some sociology classes and like family dynamic and systems there. So I think, sometimes when I'll have a client telling me about their mental health issues or their family situation, I'll be like, oh yeah, like I remember my professor in this class talking about it, and that totally adds up to what they were saying. So I think I'm just generally maybe a little bit more informed around mental health issues and relationship issues than the average person, but it's definitely not like a prerequisite to my career. It just kind of is like it's like the cherry on top or the icing on the cake.
Yeah. We talked about this before as far as, the vast number of LCWs and therapists and even psychiatrists that are out in a space right now, and rightfully so. When we're dealing with a world where we're in lockdown and quarantine and whatnot, we're looking for that sort of therapy, just talk, even thought, talk therapy, and getting emotion out that way. Do you
Yeah.
foresee LCWs and other mental health professionals adding cuddle therapy as part of their services?
See, I don't think that like a talk therapist or LCW could ethically cuddle the clients themselves, but I do foresee that some therapists would, build relationships with professional cuddlers and do referrals, maybe both ways. Because I've suggested to clients that they seek talk therapy on top of their cuddle therapy. So I think there is definitely like a bridge to be built between the mainstream mental health community and the cuddle therapy community. And I know some professional cuddlers who already network with therapists and get referrals from them.
I guess the next sort of set of questions have to do with a couple of the topics we talked about on in this project since day one, I guess, in the sense that we talk about addiction. And I would say, as far as addiction's concerned, and people that deal with addiction, whether it is alcoholism or any sort of addiction that's out there, do you find that people come to you that have addiction that are looking for cuddling to be a manager and not necessarily a firefighter, using an IFS term for a second, to handle the gaps that are within their landscape?
I mean, I've had a few. They're not super common, but definitely a couple clients who are in recovery. And I would say it definitely does help. I think you could say the same for other things like talk therapy, exercise. It's a feel good activity. It releases oxytocin. It's a coping mechanism to deal with stress, anxiety, pain, all kinds of things. So it definitely is beneficial to somebody in recovery, and it is a great outlet and coping mechanism. Because I find that, yeah, it does bring some of the same relief that maybe drugs or alcohol would, but without all the bad stuff that comes with them.
Yeah, I guess also from the nature of cuddling, do you find that sometimes within a cuddling session or post cuddle session or pre cuddle session, do you find any sort of component about the inner child sort of relationship, repressed child sort of realization that comes out through cuddling, that sort of realization comes to play, that they might be very adamant by talking about it during a cuddling session? How often and how do you address that?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not a therapist, so I don't go around asking every client about their childhood, but some do volunteer. And I would say, yeah, some, people, maybe their parents or their religion or culture was so strict that, they found relationships unapproachable and sexuality and all those things, so that they've been touch deprived out of like kind of shame and culture. And now for the first time in their lives, they're seeking touch and asking for what they want and learning to ask for what they want. And I think, yeah, some people just didn't know how to get what they wanted in their personal lives, or found approaching like a romantic relationship too challenging, so that's how they ended up in cuddling.
Dr. Yellow has a question over on YouTube. Is there any hygiene standards the client needs to have before cuddling?
Yeah, so I write that all in my cuddle profile. And usually the idea is you shower not too long before, brush your teeth, wear deodorant, don't wear super heavy perfume, clean clothes, usually something soft and comfortable that you can cuddle in. So yes, we do expect good hygiene. Most clients do follow it. I've had a couple stinky ones, unfortunately.
Um, yeah, Elo, by the way, great question. It's I can only imagine. Next question, a bit more serious in the sense that Do you find trauma survivors coming to you often for cuddle therapy?
I've had a few. Again, I'm not a therapist, so I don't know everything. Some clients may have had a trauma and they only come once or twice, and I never know. But yeah, some people, especially who've experienced like physical or sexual abuse, it's really hard for them to develop healthy relationships and receive healthy consensual touch. So I think for them, cuddling is a really safe space to approach that and use boundaries and communication, and they know with me they're not going to get pressured into anything they don't want to do, and I let them lead the way. We can just share space and talk. We can do like a hand around the shoulder or a hug or hand holding. They don't have to do a full body cuddle. And so yes, it's really wonderful when I can help someone who's had such a negative experience with touch experience a positive one and help them be an advocate for themselves.
Yeah. I think trying to find self-advocacy and trying to, basically it's something I've said many times in the last few weeks, even on this show, how important it is for our love and strength and wisdom to start internally first so we could share it to so many. Nothing resonates more than having experiences like that to realize that, hey, there is love and strength within, and I know I could share that. But most importantly, as we talked to in the beginning, it's within. We let it build within ourselves, and then we let it grow accordingly.
Yes, exactly.
Paul over on YouTube has a good question. How long has professional cuddling existed?
So I actually don't know. I've only been in the industry for 2 years. I know Cuddle Comfort, which is one of the bigger ones, has been around 10 years. I've heard 15, 20 years. I don't know where it started. It could have been Japan. It could have been like the West Coast, like Portland area, California. I really want to learn more about the history of it, but generally it's relatively new. And I'd say it's only become really mainstream the last like 5 to 10 years. Not even mainstream, but like more people know about it.
I think as far as, I guess, readily available nature of cuddling, as far as, Cuddle Comfort, Cuddlist, 5-10 years is probably right. If memory serves me from the research I've done, it's probably more like 25-30 years as far as it being a practice that is at least recognized.
Yeah.
But
So
what we'll do,
I.
yeah, what we'll do,
Yeah.
Paul, is we'll confirm that in the comments after the show. But I believe it's, I would like to say the 80s, maybe early 90s, where it became a professional sort of recognized practice in the idea of cuddle therapy. But we'll get back to you on that for sure. I think a question that we've talked about, but not specifically to this detail, but how big a concern is transference with respect to being a cuddle therapist?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a concern. I don't lose sleep over it because I know there's not a whole lot I can do. Obviously, I pre screen my clients, I make the boundaries clear. But it happens sometimes, and it kind of sucks, to be honest with you. But there's not a whole lot you can do, but I've had it happen with a handful of clients where they're like, you know what, I've developed feelings for you, and I just don't, it's too frustrating or disheartening to know that this can't go any further. And sometimes we can talk through it and try to work past it, but usually it's just, with something like cuddling, it's harder, I think, harder to work past than like traditional talk therapy. So yeah, it happens once in a while, and it's just kind of a liability that I have to live with, that once in a while I'm going to lose a client because of transference, or they legitimately have developed feelings for me.
It's, as I think about it, it's not far from what we've seen in the therapy circles as well as LCWs and psychiatrists, that this might be the first professional that's provided a great level of detail and care and sort of attention that the client has seen in a very long time, and you could see how transference may play a role in that.
Oh, definitely. Like I can totally see, especially if like during lockdown, like some of my clients, I might have been the only, female positive female interaction they were having. It's kind of like the Adam and Eve effect, if I'm the only positive interaction they have with a member of the opposite sex, it makes sense that they're going to eventually, some of them might develop feelings.
It's I think it's part of, just that sort of interaction between the professional and the client, the professional and the patient in the case of a therapist. Jamie says over on YouTube, I have seen therapists and client relationships for sure, and from what I have seen, it never goes well. I'm sure sometimes, but not often.
Okay, so she means like transference. It
Yeah.
usually never goes well. Definitely, yeah. It's really hard, and thankfully it doesn't happen super often. But I've lost a handful of clients that way, and I just have to hope that they find what they need elsewhere. And some clients will even keep have multiple cuddlers they'll see kind of in rotation or whatever, so they don't get too attached to the one cuddler. So I would say if you're out there listening right now and you're like, this might be for me, but I think I'd fall in love with my cuddler, well, you can always try seeing a few different ones and going back and forth so you're not overly attached.
Yeah. I guess talking of relationships that there are attachment, I guess that kind of leads off to this sort of question that outside of your partner, do your friends and family know about the cuddle therapy you provide, and what has been their take?
Yeah, so I was pretty open about it. Like in the very beginning, I kind of kept it hush hush because I was still kind of learning and processing and didn't know what I was doing or getting myself into. But at this point, I'm pretty open about it. I think all but one of my family members know, and that's because someone else doesn't want me to tell them, not because I care. But yeah, I think most of my family, they're either like neutral or like they're like, at least she's making money, because my parents were not very successful in life. So they're just like, at least she's supporting herself. And some think it's really awesome what I'm doing, and they think I'm really helping people and it's a really cool career.
I wanted to make a quick correction before we continue because Brenda, I drew a blank for a second when you brought your comment up with this being an interesting topic. STMB is Spirit Throw Me a Bone. She runs a fantastic site. I recommend it. Spirit Throw Me a Bone. She's on YouTube and on Facebook, but an incredibly great speaker, but also an incredibly great person. Definitely awesome. So sorry for the mind freeze about 15 minutes ago, but that's her site. I guess the last question I wanted to ask you, as far as okay, what's your dog's name?
This is Cookie. So yeah, she just likes to come up and steal the show sometimes.
Cookie is one of the 6 pets you have.
Yes, yeah, I've got 2 dogs, 2 rabbits, and 2 guinea pigs. So yes, when I'm not cuddling my clients, I am cuddling my pets or my partner at home. I'm always cuddling something most of the time. That's my default in life.
Jamie says hi, Cookie.
Yeah.
What sort of person makes the ideal cuddle therapist in your mind?
Yeah. So, yeah, I would say probably the biggest trait that we all have is we're all empaths. We all really, care about other people and feel their pain and want to help them. I think you have to love to cuddle, really. I think if you're like, I don't like touch, and you're just like doing it for the money, like I think you're not going to be very good at it, and clients will sense that you're not, your heart's not in it. So I think if you love the work, you love to cuddle, you love to talk to people and meet new people, you'll be very successful in it. Be a good listener. You have to be able to listen to people, hear them out. I'm a big talker, but I also try to listen. That's something I have to work on sometimes. Like I could say I have worked on it. You have to be somewhat organized and reliable. You're booking sessions with, several clients a week. And if you're super flaky and not putting things in your calendar and planning your day ahead of time, that's not going to help your reputation in the cuddle community. And then I guess the other last thing I want to say is like having really strong ethics and character. You always want to put your client's best interest first, and make sure you're seeing people for the right reasons and you aren't making bad decisions for the money, because there are some unscrupulous characters in the industry, and it's very easy to get corrupted if you aren't, if you don't have a strong head and a strong moral compass.
And it requires, that sort of due diligence and doing research before you take on any provider. Yeah. And that's not only true for cuddle therapy, that's also true in the mental health field as far as psychiatry and LCWs and therapists.
Definitely, yeah.
Marcus says, I missed most of this. Definitely need to watch the replay. This is super interesting. Marcus, glad you stopped by. And then Paul is telling us that Cookie was stopping by before a busy night of cuddling. So that was important. Yeah. Cookie. Paul continues to say her schedule's packed, which it is. And Cookie's schedule is very much packed for sure. And our sleep guru over on Facebook, Christina Grabnicka, says, hi, John. Hi, Christina. Hope you're having a great evening. And our friend Easy over on YouTube says, good morning, Vietnam. But I'm sure the rest of the world, too. Hope you're doing well, Easy. I think before we put, a giant bow on this, was there, as far as your take on where cuddling is going in 2021 and onward, where do you see it going? And what have you been finding?
So the cuddle industry obviously got really shaken up over the pandemic. So I think you saw like there were actual like physical cuddle shops that got shut down, and I think we're kind of in a weird, phase of rebuilding and regrowth, rebirth. I speculate a lot, but I guess I have no idea. I would like to think that there'd be more regulation, more training, more quality. That's what I would really like to see, because, Cuddleist, which is one of the sites I'm on, they require everybody get trained and it's super professional. But other sites, anybody can sign up and there's not a lot of regulation. So you'll get like sex workers signing up there using it as like a smokescreen, really. And so I think I'd like to see the cuddle industry move away from that and more the therapeutic side, work more with mental health and healthcare professionals. That's where I'd like to see the industry go.
As you mentioned, you're on Cuddleist, so I'm going to actually bring you on solo for a second, because I actually have your website on the solo scene. Okay. So let me do that. And it's cuddleist.com/Xandria. That's cuddleist.com/Xandria. She's on Cuddleist. Also, Cookie's not on Cuddleist, but I mean, Cookie's there.
She's like the cuddliest dog you will ever meet. Like, she always wants cuddles and attention, and if she could be a professional cuddler, she probably would.
Jamie says, good information. I never knew until today this existed. Thank you, Xandria.
Oh, you're welcome, Jamie.
Any final comments before we put a giant bow on this? Cookie, any thoughts?
I think she just wants all the cuddles and attention to herself.
She wants all the cuddles and the attention. Xandria, it's been fantastic. This has been an honor to have you on the show, and I'm glad you're able to share your story as far as the importance of cuddle therapy, what you see, and how you got into it and all that. And just thank you again, very much so.
Thank you for having me, John. It was a lot of fun.
Have a great night, Xandria.
All right, you too. Bye.
Bye. Xandria, ladies and gentlemen, a professional cuddlist, just a phenomenal person, a great friend, I will say, and Like she definitely knows her stuff, and it was great to have her on the show tonight to talk about something that you don't really talk about. Well, at least we didn't talk about the last year and change on this show, but I'm glad we talked about it tonight because we talk about self-care and how important self-care is, and human touch, physical touch, cuddling is very important to that as far as the oxytocin effect. Being able to have oxytocin flow and all that. It's really, really important. Some questions that were popping up towards the end there. So let me quickly move my graphic out of the way. Easy says, sorry for being late. Cuddling what? Yeah, cuddling other people. Two people cuddling. It's definitely cuddle therapy's become a very major thing in the last 5-10 years, and Xandria is definitely a very good expert as far as that. And again, much appreciation to her. Paul says, yeah, super interesting. Yes, easy. There was dogs and humans in this interview, and guinea pigs and others. So, and Marcus says, thank you, Xandria and JV. Thank you, Marcus, for joining us on YouTube, and thank you to all of you that have joined us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch this evening. Couple of schedule changes for the next couple episodes. Thursday was supposed to be a pre-recorded show. I am actually going to do a live show from Portland on Thursday, and VF Talks on Friday will be live from Portland. So let's talk about that real quick, in the sense that Thursday will be a conversation who I'm very close to solidifying as far as the guest, and as soon as I do, I will put that information on Restream. On Friday, VF Talks will be live from Portland, but we will have the same co-host, the same fun and frivolity that we have every week with Paul and Matt, and possibly with Callie Fabro as well. So Venture Forward is Thursday night at 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Pacific. VF Talks is Friday night at 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific. And then next week, it's going to be the same sort of timetable as I am on the West Coast at Vid Summit. So again, it'll be Tuesday and Thursday, 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Pacific. VF Talks Friday night at 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific. Couple of comments have shown real quick. Easy says, had an earthquake an hour ago, felt cool, 6.0 Richter scale. Okay. Hope you're okay. If that was a joke, well, then it wasn't a good one because I didn't catch on to it. Michelle, you're welcome. It was. I'm glad everybody showed up tonight for sure. And then, I had a couple of more comments, but they disappeared. Oh, Ecam. Oh well. Okay. Nevertheless. Oh, seriously. So 6.0 earthquake. What in outside of? Can you tell us quickly in the comments where you are and where you got the 6.0 earthquake? Because now we can quickly talk about that for a second. We're glad you're okay. Just for the sake of where you are, just let us know exactly where you are and where it was epicentered. I unfortunately can't get it up on the side monitor over here. Melbourne, Australia, 2 states felt it. I hope our friends in Australia are okay this morning and this afternoon, given the earthquake. Easy and glad you're okay for sure. So, yeah, earthquakes are scary, and I've heard that they've been picking up lately. You know, let me see if I can do that real quick. Let's see. This is live, right? But we can do this real quick. 5.9 earthquake, 80 miles from Melbourne at 7:15 this evening. I assume that was Eastern time because you said it was a couple hours ago. Then, yeah, it was, yeah. Easy says, I was a main speaker in an AA group and the earthquake was on and I apologized. When you have a 5.960 earthquake going on, I assume there's no need for apology. Just try to hide under a desk or in a doorway for sure. And I agree, Jamie. I hope Sherry's okay as well if Sherry's near there. I hope our Australian and New Zealand friends are safe tonight given the earthquake. We're here for you for sure. And Michelle says your speech was earth moving. Wow. And Easy's laughing. That's a good one. Earth moving. That's how powerful a speaker Easy is. The earth moves when he talks. It's amazing. Easy's just amazing, period. But he's that good. Anyhow, let me put a bow on this and sign off here. And I'll tell you the same thing I say at the end of every Venture Forward and VF Talks. Stay safe, stay sane, stay strong, stay sober. You're worth it. I'll see you tomorrow night. Not tomorrow night. I'll see you Thursday night at 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 Pacific, for the next episode of the Venture Forward. Have a great night. Fly be free.